Have you ever stood in the rain of someone else's sorrow and found yourself soaked to the bone? You walk away from a conversation carrying a strange anxiety that is not yours. You feel a wave of sadness with no name, no origin. You are a compassionate person, but your compassion leaves you feeling heavy, drained, and carrying luggage that does not belong to you. You believe that to be truly empathetic, you must feel what they are feeling. That is a myth, and it is the fast track to burnout. True, sustainable empathy does not come from merging with their pain. It comes from being a calm, grounded lighthouse that can witness their storm without getting pulled into the waves. The most compassionate thing you can do is stay in your own boat. This is the next evolution of your shadow work. It is the graduation from being a passive emotional sponge to becoming a conscious energetic sovereign. Carl Jung taught that a primary task of psychological maturity is the development of conscious discernment, the ability to separate our own psyche from the world around us. Today, we practice that discernment. In this masterclass, we will move through 3 critical stages. First, we will explore the Jungian reason why you absorb the energy of others, the origin of your porous boundaries. Second, we will radically redefine empathy, moving from a state of being to a powerful skill you can wield. And third, I will give you 3 in-the-moment tools to build your energetic shield so you can keep your heart open without letting your soul take on water. This is the journey of learning to be a lighthouse, not a sponge. To begin this sacred practice of self-preservation, I invite you to make a new declaration. Write in the comments below, "I am a witness, not a sponge."
Your empathy is a gift. Let us begin there. It is a form of deep perception, an emotional sonar that allows you to sense the world in a way others cannot. It is a superpower. But a superpower, when left untrained and unconscious, can be profoundly destructive. For many empaths, this gift does not operate like a radar, which detects from a safe distance. It operates like a sponge. It doesn't just perceive emotion, it absorbs it. You walk into an office meeting and feel a knot in your stomach, and you mistake your colleague's anxiety for your own. You listen to a friend's heartbreak, and for days afterward, you carry a phantom sadness, a psychic luggage that is not yours to hold. You become a walking library of other people's feelings, and you have forgotten where your own story begins. This is the central wound of the untrained empath. You are not just feeling for people, you are feeling as them. And this is the fast track to burnout. To understand why this happens, we must look at it through the lens of Jungian psychology. We must talk about the concept of ego boundaries. Imagine your psyche, your sense of self, is a house. Healthy ego boundaries are like the walls and the doors of that house. They are a flexible, semi-permeable membrane. They allow you to open the door to welcome a guest, to share warmth and connection. And they allow you to close and lock the door when you need privacy, safety, or rest. They allow you to know with certainty what is inside your house and what is outside. The empathic sponge, however, lives in a house with no doors, or perhaps a house made of mist. There is no clear distinction between what is me and what is not me. The emotions of others don't knock. They simply drift in like the weather and become the climate of your inner world. Your ego boundaries are porous. Now, this is the most important part. Your boundaries are not porous because you are weak. They are porous because you are brilliant. This was a survival strategy. Let's imagine Chloe, the nurse we know. She's in her late 30s. As a child, she grew up in a home where a parent's mood was unpredictable and often frightening. Her survival depended on one thing: becoming an expert in her parents' nervous system. She had to feel what they felt before they even felt it, to anticipate the storm, to manage the mood, to become the perfect emotional thermostat, adjusting herself constantly to keep the peace. In order to do this job, the job of a parentified child, she had to dissolve her own ego boundaries. She had to merge. To feel as them was to stay safe. It was not a flaw. It was her genius. It was the core of her early shadow work. But now, Chloe is an adult. The danger is over. But the survival strategy is still running. The program is stuck on repeat. So when she walks into a patient's room, she doesn't just see an elderly man who is ill. Her nervous system, honed by years of practice, immediately absorbs his fear of mortality, his unspoken anger at his own frailty. She holds it all. She does her job with profound compassion, but when she gets in her car at the end of her shift, she feels a crushing weight, a sadness that feels ancient. She thinks, "I'm too sensitive for this job. There's something wrong with me." There is nothing wrong with her. She is simply a world-class sonar operator who believes she is the ocean. This is the great misunderstanding. You have been trained to believe that this absorption, this merging, is empathy. That to truly care for someone, you must take on their pain. But this is not true compassion. It is a form of self-abandonment. It does not help the other person. You cannot guide someone out of a pit if you jump in with them. And it destroys you. You become a psychic dumping ground for the world's unprocessed pain. And you wonder why you are so tired. The first step to healing this pattern, the first step to building your energetic shield, is not to stop caring. It is to finally and compassionately understand the difference between empathy and absorption. It is to realize that you are not here to be a sponge soaking up the chaos. You are here to be a lighthouse, to stand firm in your own light, to witness the storm from a place of unshakable presence, and to offer a path to safety without ever leaving your own solid ground. And the journey to becoming that lighthouse begins with a simple but profound shift in your stance. A shift from being a participant in their pain to becoming a curious scientist of it.
So how do you care without being crushed? How do you witness another's pain without making it your own? The answer is not to build a higher wall. It is not to close your heart. The answer is to change your position, to shift your stance from a participant in their suffering to a conscious observer of it. This requires us to radically redefine empathy. For too long, we have confused empathy with absorption. Absorption is the unconscious, boundaryless merging with another's emotional state. It is feeling as them. It is passive, it is reactive. And as we've seen, it is a trauma response learned in childhood. True empathy is something else entirely. It is the active skill of understanding what another person is feeling and being able to hold space for that feeling from a grounded, sovereign center. It is feeling with them, not as them. It is a choice. It is a skill. It is an art. To truly grasp this shift, let's use a powerful metaphor: the scientist at the volcano. Imagine your friend is going through a painful divorce. Their inner world is a raging volcano of anger, grief, and fear.
The old you, the empathic sponge, practices absorption. When your friend calls, you metaphorically jump right into the crater with them. You feel the searing heat of their rage. You get hit by the molten rocks of their sorrow. You choke on the ash of their confusion. You are in the chaos with them. At the end of the conversation, you're both covered in ash, exhausted, and neither of you is any closer to safety. You have not helped. You have only become a second victim. The new you, the integrated empath, practices observation. You are the scientist at the volcano. You do not jump into the crater. You set up your observation post on a safe, solid hill nearby. From this stable ground, you use your powerful instruments, your deep perception, your emotional sonar, to study the volcano. You can see its power. You can feel its heat from a distance. You can map its flow. You can say with profound, genuine compassion, I see the fire. I see the devastation. This must be terrifying. You are witnessing their reality fully and deeply. But you are not burning. Your feet are on your own solid ground. Because you are not in the chaos, you can be a true source of help. You are the one who can see the bigger picture. You are the one who can say, I see a safe path down the western slope that you can't see from inside the crater. You are the one who can offer a bottle of water, a map, a steady hand. You are a resource, not another casualty. This is true empathy. It is not cold. It is not detached. It is the most grounded, useful, and sustainable form of love. It honors their capacity to navigate their own volcano while offering the unwavering presence of a guide who is not lost in the same smoke. Let's bring this back to Chloe, our nurse. A patient's family member receives difficult news and begins to sob uncontrollably. The old Chloe, the sponge, would have felt her own heart shatter. Her own eyes would have filled with tears. She would have absorbed the family's grief, carrying it with her for the rest of her shift, leaving her depleted and less effective for her other patients. The new Chloe, the scientist, takes a quiet breath before she enters the room. She plants her feet on the ground. She reminds herself, I am the lighthouse, not the storm. She enters the room. She sits with the family. She feels the waves of their grief washing against her, but they are not washing over her. She is witnessing, not absorbing. She can say with a calm, deep sincerity, this is an unimaginable pain. I am so sorry. I am here with you. She is fully present. Her heart is wide open, but her energetic pores are closed. She can offer a tissue, a glass of water, a moment of silent presence, all from a place of grounded strength. When she leaves the room, she consciously takes a moment to release what was not hers. She might shake her hands or take another deep cleansing breath. She leaves the family's grief with them, where it belongs. She can then walk to her next patient, not as a depleted shell, but as a full and present caregiver. She has served without self-abandoning. She has cared without carrying. This is the shift that will save your life. It is the practice that will turn your greatest vulnerability into your most sustainable power. The world does not need more sponges drowning in the collective sorrow. The world desperately needs more lighthouses. More people who have done the difficult shadow work to find their own solid ground so they can stand unshaken and shine their light into the stormiest of nights. The question then is not how to shut down your perception. The question is how to build your lighthouse. How, in the heat of the moment, do you remember to be the scientist and not the volcano? That requires a new set of tools. Simple, in-the-moment practices that create the necessary space between you and the storm. And that is the toolkit we will open next.
So you are the scientist on the hill, watching the volcano. It is a powerful shift in perspective, but the ground still shakes. You can still feel the heat. How, in the middle of the eruption, do you keep your footing? How do you stay steady when the air itself is thick with chaos? Principles are the map, but you need tools for the journey. You need a practical, in-the-moment toolkit for the scientist of the soul. Today, we place 3 such tools into your hands. They are simple, they are portable, and they are profoundly effective. The first tool is the internal mantra. A mantra is a short, powerful phrase that acts as an anchor for your consciousness. It is a command you give to your own nervous system. Before you enter a situation you know will be emotionally charged, a difficult meeting, a family dinner, a conversation with a draining friend, you pause. You take one single conscious breath, and you silently repeat this phrase to yourself. I am here to witness, not to carry. Let's say that again. I am here to witness, not to carry. This is not just a positive affirmation. It is a declaration of your role. You are setting a conscious intention. You are telling your empathic system, your inner sponge, that its old job of absorbing is no longer required. Its new job is to observe. This simple act primes your psyche for detachment. It draws a clear boundary in your own mind before you ever speak a word. Imagine Chloe, our nurse, about to walk into the hospital room of a particularly anxious patient. In her car, before her shift, she closes her eyes for just 30 seconds. She breathes. She says the words in her own mind, I am here to witness, not to carry. She is not closing her heart. She is programming her shield. The second tool is the bubble of light visualization. Your unconscious mind does not primarily speak in words. It speaks in images, in symbols. This is the language of Carl Jung's work, the language of dreams and of the soul. To communicate with it, we must use its language. This visualization is a direct instruction, in the language of symbols, to your energetic field. As you are about to enter that difficult situation, or even in the middle of it, take a moment, close your eyes if you can, or just soften your gaze. Imagine a beautiful sphere, a bubble of warm golden white light forming around your entire body, about an arm's length away in all directions. See it shimmering, feel its warmth. Now, set the intention for this bubble. It is permeable from the inside out. This means your love, your compassion, your wisdom can flow freely to others. But it is a one-way filter from the outside in. It allows you to perceive what is happening outside, but it neutralizes any chaotic or negative energy that tries to enter your space. Imagine the angry words, the anxious energy of another person hitting the surface of your bubble, and instead of piercing it, they simply dissolve, like drops of ink in a vast ocean of light. They are seen, they are witnessed, they are not absorbed. Chloe is at that family dinner. Her aunt begins a passive-aggressive story designed to create drama. As her aunt speaks, Chloe, while keeping a neutral expression, visualizes her golden bubble. She hears the words, she sees the performance, but she feels the words hitting that warm, protective light around her and simply dissolving. They do not land, They do not penetrate her inner space. She is in her lighthouse, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. The third tool is a cognitive one. It is the art of shifting your internal dialogue from feeling to curiosity. I call this the "that's interesting" cognitive shift. When you are in the presence of someone's emotional volcano, your instinct is to feel the heat, to feel the fear. This tool invites you to take one step back in your own mind and become a scientist. Instead of getting lost in the emotion, you begin to observe the mechanics of it with a cool, detached curiosity. Your colleague is ranting about an injustice at work. Instead of absorbing their rage, you think to yourself, "That's interesting. Notice how his voice gets higher when he feels powerless. That's interesting. He's using a lot of black and white language, seeing no nuance." A friend is spiraling into anxiety about the future. Instead of taking on their panic, you think, "That's interesting. Notice how her breathing becomes shallow when she talks about money. That's interesting. She's telling a story about the future as if it's a fact." This is not an act of coldness. You are still present, you are still listening, but you have shifted your internal identity from fellow victim to compassionate anthropologist. You are studying the phenomenon of their emotion, not becoming the phenomenon. This simple mental shift is profoundly effective. In neuroscience terms, it moves you out of your reactive emotional limbic system and into your observant, logical prefrontal cortex. It literally changes the channel in your brain. These three tools, the mantra, the bubble, and the cognitive shift, are your starter kit. They are the first lessons in the art of building your lighthouse. They are how you begin to answer that deep and painful question: how do I love them without losing me? You love them by witnessing them fully. You love them by offering your calm, grounded presence as an anchor in their storm. You love them by refusing to drown with them so that you can keep the lighthouse beam steady, shining a path toward shore. This is not just a better way to care for others. It is the only way that is sustainable. It is the only way that does not require you to abandon yourself in the sacred and often difficult act of love.
Today, we have stood on the shore and learned the difference between the storm and the lighthouse. We have seen that your tendency to absorb the world's pain was not a character flaw. It was a brilliant survival strategy from your past, a form of shadow work your inner child performed to keep you safe. You are not broken. You were a guardian. We have redefined empathy, moving it from the passive, draining state of absorption, feeling as them, to the active, powerful skill of observation, feeling with them. From a sponge to a scientist, from a casualty to a lighthouse. And we have placed three tangible tools into your hands: the internal mantra to set your intention, the bubble of light to communicate with your unconscious in its own symbolic language, and the "that's interesting" cognitive shift to move you from reaction to observation. But knowledge is not yet wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge applied. So the question becomes, how do you practice this without feeling overwhelmed? How do you train to be a lighthouse when you have spent a lifetime being the sea? You do not start in the middle of a hurricane. You start in a safe harbor. You start with a simulation. Your invitation for this week is not to test your shield with the most difficult person you know. Your invitation is to practice with the safest, most predictable source of emotional chaos in your life.
your television, or your social media feed. These are machines designed to elicit an emotional reaction from you. They are the perfect, low-stakes training ground. Here is your first observation mission. This week, find a movie, a news segment, or a dramatic online post. As you watch, notice the moment you begin to feel pulled in, the moment your body tenses, the moment your heart aches for the character on screen. In that moment, I want you to practice the sacred pause. Take one conscious breath and deploy one of your tools. Silently say the mantra, "I am here to witness, not to carry." Quickly visualize your golden bubble. Or simply think to yourself, "That's interesting. Notice how the music is designed to make me feel sad right now." The goal is not to become numb. The goal is to notice that you can create a tiny sliver of space between you and the feeling being presented to you. To notice that you can see the storm without becoming the storm. This is not a small thing. This is the beginning of everything. Every time you practice this, you are carving a new neural pathway in your brain, a pathway of conscious discernment, a pathway of self-possession. You are not just managing energy, you are reclaiming the throne of your own inner kingdom. You are remembering the Jungian truth that the self is the calm center that can hold all the chaos of the world without being destroyed by it. As you become this lighthouse, as your light becomes more steady, more clear, you will notice that some storms do not simply pass by. Some are sent directly to you to test your foundation. They are not storms of random chaos, they are targeted weapons. And the most powerful of these weapons, the one designed specifically to short-circuit the heart of the empath, is guilt. How do you stand firm when your love is used against you? How do you hold your boundary when you are accused of being selfish or cruel or unloving? How do you disarm the poison of the guilt trip? That is a specialized form of self-defense. And it is the masterclass we will enter in our next conversation. For now, your work is to find your solid ground, to practice the art of compassionate detachment, to make this shift from a passive identity to an active skill real. To anchor this new identity in your own psyche, I invite you to make this final declaration. Share in the comments below these powerful words of sovereignty. I am a witness, not a sponge. Thank you for the courage to stand firm and to shine your light.